Hey y'all, welcome back to the next installment in SB's training series. This is an exciting video because I'm going to be trimming her front hooves. I started off with a little bit of flag work, having her move around and then seeing if I could put the flag on her as she's moving. This helps her get even more comfortable with the flag, and the eventual goal is to have her good with things moving and touching her all over, which helps get her ready for things like trimming. It's a hard ask for a horse who's on day 7 from being completely wild, just 1 week into her training, but she really needed it done. I'll share some pictures a little bit later in the video of what her hooves look like before and after. I wasn't sure how much I was going to be able to get done, but I at least wanted to start getting her used to the tools. She was doing really well considering how new she was to seeing the flag. I really like this exercise as it helps horses learn to think through things while moving instead of standing and freezing up, which I don't want them to do. She absolutely sailed through this training. She's a really smart and trainable mare. I wanted to be able to get her used to something on her legs while she's moving and see how she would do with that. She was a bit unsure of it on her front leg and kind of thought she was supposed to stop, but she sorted it out. She could sometimes get a little confused when I was asking her to stop, so I wanted to make it really clear to her to yield her hindquarters away and turn to face me. This is the fastest I've had a horse figure this exercise out. She's like, oh, okay, so keep moving with the flag on me. No problem. And then I wanted to see if I could get her to follow it. She didn't quite lock on to the flag yet, but it didn't take her long into a future training session to figure that out. Then I started with the ribbon wand. This is a really good way to get them desensitized to things moving all around them and on their legs. It's a bit more than the flag, so it's generally a bit scarier for them, and it helps get them used to that kind of stuff. I slowly unravel the ribbons as I start to get her used to it. And she's basically like, yeah, it's a stick and string, it's just colorful and there's more strings. She felt like she was thinking about locking onto and following the ribbon stick of her own accord. She even stepped on it, which was really good. I feel like if I can't use something like this all around a horse's legs, I have no business trying to pick them up with my hands because it makes it more dangerous for me. She did really good, only one jump when it made a bit more noise than I was intending, going around her front legs for the first time, but she quickly settled.
Is this all just another stupid string? Yeah. It's like there's just a bunch of red and yellow strings. You think I'm stupid or something? That's what she'd say.
She's a funny mare. She's very brave. I wanted to see if we could do the same exercise with the ribbon wand, and she really did not care one bit. But it's still important to do all of our homework on this stuff. Even with it dragging alongside her, she didn't mind it one bit. And I got her to follow it, no problem.
Is that where he is fit? Maybe? A little bit? You're being weird.
I decided to challenge her a little bit and see what she thought of it going over her front legs while she walked. She was like, there's an obstacle in the way, but she really wasn't too bothered by it. Just a little bit of prep work and seeing how she felt about something touching her belly. Sometimes when I'm trimming, I can accidentally brush their belly, and that might startle them if they're not ready for it, so I want to make sure that she's okay with that. And take a look at the underside of her feet. Her feet are so long. It wasn't until I started picking them out with the hoof pick that I realized how much extra foot she had. This was her first day being asked to hold her leg up really any length of time or use any kind of tool on it, so she was really good considering all of this. Just a little bit fidgety, which is very normal. I put the rope around her foot to kind of help her out a little bit so she could start to feel like it was something she knew a little bit better than holding it up with my hand, which was newer to her. I have a growing theory that Mustangs feel our intentions, and while I've always known this, it's become very apparent to me when I start doing things that are 100% for the benefit of the animal. Now, all of the training that I do is for their benefit, but I'm also trying to achieve a goal. I want to get them started under saddle. I want to prepare them for a show. I have my own goals for the horse, and the end goal is to produce a happy, healthy, well-rounded animal that has a good, bright future in a loving home. But in the meantime, us trainers get bogged down in our own goals. We want to show, we want to compete and do well. And with the horses, I've noticed something when I do something that's just to make the horse feel better, they change completely when they feel my intentions. I saw this with Odyssey when I had to clip him on day 10 because his coat was so long and he was sweating in the Florida weather. I saw this when I had to trim Kirby's hooves when he'd just seen a hoof pick for the first time that day, and I'm seeing it again with Hesperie when I started to trim her. She softened and relaxed so much, allowing me to do way more than I ever would have expected to do on day 4 of picking up her feet and her first time having any kind of tools used on her front feet. It might sound silly, but I think these horses recognize when we're trying to help them and make them feel better and do something that is 100% to make them feel better. In my experience, when they feel like you're doing something not partially for your own benefit as well as theirs, but just to help them out, I feel like they allow you to do so much more. Hesperie was falling asleep by the end of her trimming session. In these clips, I obviously sped some up, but I'm going to show some of the slower moments, and you'll see a few times where she gets nervous and she pulls away from me, and every time she did that, it's because I should have set her foot down sooner. So she was just communicating with me that she needed to rest and have her foot down, and I tried my best to listen to her and set it down sooner the next time. I'm using a trick I figured out when I was trimming Kirby that makes it a little bit safer for me than putting her foot in between my knees. I have the rope around her leg so that she feels that something she's a little bit more familiar with, and I have it in between my knees so I can use two hands on the nippers. And it's very hard to hold the hoof stable like this, so I didn't do it for too long, but that's why it kind of looks like I'm struggling a little bit. It's partially because she has like a 4-inch thick hoof wall and so much extra sole that I didn't have a hoof knife to take off because I didn't expect to get to the point of using a hoof knife. My goal for the day was to make a few little clips with the nippers just to get her used to the sound and see how she did with that. I was not expecting to get as far as I did. Now here, that was my bad. I was not being vigilant enough, and that put myself in a bit of a dangerous situation, but she's a very good girl. She just got a little bit unsure and off balance. I learned how to barefoot trim so that I can help Mustangs and get their first couple trims out of the way so that they can start to feel better. Mustangs are not always going to be ready for a farrier by the time they need to be done, especially in Hesperie's case, but she's not the first one I've had that needed to have their hooves trimmed badly, and I didn't feel like I could ask a farrier to trim them because they simply weren't safe. Because the horses know me, because I've been the one working with them from the beginning, it's safer for me to get the first trim out of the way until they're ready to be seen by a professional. But I always have my work checked over by professionals, and I will be getting Hesperie's hooves trimmed by a farrier as soon as I feel like it's safe for her to do so. In the meantime, I'm taking off her extra foot, and I'm going to be checking her balance and making sure it's as balanced as I can possibly get it. And I'll share some before and after pictures. I did not get her front hooves completely where I wanted them in this video. I only used the nippers because I wanted to make it as simple as possible for her, but I definitely got it a lot better, and she was feeling a lot better. I could tell by her posture, her movement, and her body language. There's also only so much you can do in a trim cycle when a horse is so out of balance because you don't want to change too much at once. So I felt like she was ready for me to just put her leg between my knees, and she seemed to appreciate that. I appreciated it as well because it gives so much extra stability, and you can see I was able to make a much cleaner, easier run around the outside of her hoof and take off some sole with the nippers because I didn't have a hoof knife on me. I finished off her left front by cleaning up the outside of the toe as best as I can without a rasp, and here are the before and after pictures. You can pause to view them for longer. They are labeled right front, left front, before and after. Now, this is nowhere near perfect, but it is a lot of progress for sure, and I did some more work on them in the future days. I did not film me trimming her right front. She was just as good as she was for the left front, but my phone was overheating, so I didn't get that filmed. Here I am doing a little bit of haltering practice. I first put a second halter on over her first halter, and she was absolutely fine with that. I just used the second halter to see how the horse prefers being haltered, and she seemed to like this method where I take the string over her ears and then put over her nose. She was really good, and I decided it was time for her to go halter free when I ended the session. I just did this as a bit of a break before trimming her right front, gave her another break, and then I went to work on helping her with her skin on her back legs. You can see how much mud there is caked on there, and I wanted to see if I could loosen some of that up and help her skin feel better. So I put some neem oil on both back legs. She was really good to let me do all this, and then I put some Desensitization on there. It wasn't going to be long before she was ready for a bath and to get all that mud scrubbed off. The point of this whole week, really, or first couple weeks of her training, was to just do everything I could to help her feel better. So we were feeding her up. She always had hay in her hay box, never ran out, and she was already putting on some weight. And so I helped her with her feet, which were definitely hurting her. She was still a bit sore tracking right, which you might have seen in the beginning of this video. And I wish I had been able to film, because when I picked up her right front to trim, there were definitely some rocks embedded in there, which caused some bruising and definitely explained why she was sore. But you can see in the pictures how her frog was crushed to the side, and I think that's why it was like that. A horse can only act as good as they feel, and trying to do any riding prep or getting on and riding while she's not feeling 100% would be completely counterproductive and not fair to her at all. So my number one priority is always to help them feel the best that I can, make sure their feet are in balance and not too long, and make sure they're comfortable before moving on to training them for any competition goals. She's a sweet mare. She's very reserved and a little bit stoic, though. She hasn't fully come out of her shell, and I thought that some of that was related to the discomfort she was experiencing. And I think that I was right, because in the coming days, she started to feel and seem a lot happier and more engaged. This video feels like a whole lot of me monologuing, but the moral of the story is get your horse feeling 100% before you try to train them to do anything for you. The goal is always to have a healthy, happy partner. I cut some of the mud globs with scissors. I was very, very careful to introduce them slowly, and she was so patient to let me do all of this. We wrapped up our day after that. Thank y'all so much for watching. She truly blew me away with her willingness on this day, and I'm very excited to share some future updates.